Hi everyone! In the previous video, I showed you how you can integrate Jenkins with Bitbucket so that a new build is automatically started after each commit. But we didn't actually do anything. We didn't build real code, we didn't test it, we didn't deploy it. So in this video, I'll be taking it a bit further and configure Jenkins so that it runs PHP unit tests after each commit. To follow this video, you'll need to know the basics of unit testing. You also need to know the basics of PHP and PHPUnit. If you don't know any of these subjects, you might find it a bit harder to follow this video, but give it a try. So what's next for this video? Well, first of all, I'm going to run through the code that I want to test. Afterwards, I'm going to install PHPUnit onto my Jenkins server, and I'm going to install the JUnit plugin for Jenkins. Then, I'm going to configure our existing job so that it runs unit tests, and then I'm going to test and verify that everything works correctly. But hold on a minute. You might ask, why do you install the JUnit plugin to run PHPUnit? Well, good question. To answer it, let's take a look at the complete flow. It begins when Jenkins starts the build process. We'll configure it so that it runs PHPUnit tests on the server. PHPUnit will run all these tests, and we will ask it to generate a report of all these tests in the JUnit XML format, and it will actually store that onto the file system. Now finally, Jenkins will parse the contents of the XML file. It can determine if all tests were successful and act accordingly. So now that you have this overview, let's begin. So for the purpose of this video, I also created an example project, and my example project is stored in the folder Jenkins-phpunit-test, and it basically contains just one PHP class. It's called gumballmachine.php, which mimics the behavior of a gumball machine. It has one attribute. It has the number of gumballs in the machine as an attribute, and then it has three methods. The first method is a getter, which returns the amount of gumballs that are still in the machine. The second one is a setter, which allows us to set the amount of gumballs in the machine. And then the third method is turn wheel, which simulates a user turning the wheel and the machine dispensing a gumball. So this reduces the number of gumballs in the machine by 1. Now we also wrote a unit test for this gumball machine class, and I put that in the tests directory. So here is gumballmachine-test.php. And this is a PHPUnit framework test case, which creates a new instance of the gumball machine for every test. And then I just have one test to see if the wheel turn actually works. So what we do is we create a new instance of the gumball machine. We set the amount of gumballs to 100. We then turn the wheel, and then we verify that the amount of gumballs in the machine is 99. So just to show you that everything is working correctly, let me open up my terminal and run PHPUnit. So I'm going to run PHPUnit test/gumballmachine-test. I'm going to hit enter, and here it says, okay, one test, one assertion, everything went well. And just to show you, I'm going to screw up the gumball machine and show you what happens when this test actually fails. So instead of reducing the amount of gumballs in the machine by 1 every time we turn the wheel, I'm just going to do nothing. I'm not going to reduce the amount of gumballs in the machine, which is not correct. So I go back to my terminal, I run the test again, and now boom, there was one failure. Failed to assert that 100 matches the expected 99. So I'm going to fix the gumball machine, and then I'm going to show you the Bitbucket repository for this project. So here on Bitbucket, I have the exact same project. I have my gumball machine with the same logic, and I also have the same unit tests. Now I've also created a job in Jenkins, which is also called Jenkins-phpunit-test, to actually build this project and unit test it as we make new commits. Now the first thing we have to do is we have to install PHPUnit test onto our Jenkins server. So for that, I'm going to open up an SSH connection to my server. Okay, so here I am logged into my Jenkins server, and installing PHPUnit test is actually incredibly easy. You just have to run sudo apt-get install PHPUnit, and this will install not only PHPUnit, it will also install all the dependencies such as PHP itself and many other frameworks. So I'm going to say yes, And I'm going to speed up the video so that this doesn't bore you. Okay, so that's all we have to do on our server. PHPUnit is now correctly installed, and we can continue with the Jenkins part. So I'm going to go to Jenkins, and the first thing you need to do is you need to verify that the JUnit plugin is installed and enabled in your Jenkins installation. Now, normally this is the case, but check it anyway. So in Manage Plugins, go to the Installed section, and here you should see that the JUnit plugin is indeed active and installed. So now I'm going to go back to the homepage of Jenkins, and I'm going to change the settings of this job. So I'm going to configure it. And in the build section, I'm going to add a new build step. So here I'm going to go for execute shell. And what I want to do here is I want to instruct Jenkins to run the PHPUnit tests and then do something with the results. So if the test failed, then Jenkins should obviously fail the build. And if the tests succeed, then it should continue with the other tasks. So here I have the possibility to execute any shell command that's available on my Linux server. So I'm going to run PHPUnit, and I'm going to instruct it to log the results as in the JUnit file format. And I'm going to say that you can log it in results-phpunit-phpunit.xml. You can choose this path, and you can choose the name of the test results as well. Now you might not have noticed, but in my project I also have a phpunit.xml configuration file, and I'm going to reference that here. I'm going to say the configuration file that you have to use for this unit tests is located in the test directory, and it's called phpunit.xml. Now just to show you, I can show you this configuration right here. It's in the tests directory, it's called phpunit.xml, and here basically I say that the entire test suite is located in this very directory, and it will run all the tests it finds in this directory. Pretty simple. So back to Jenkins. That's pretty much all we have to do for this execute shell step here. So this will be running on every build, and PHPUnit will publish the results as a JUnit XML file. Okay, so now that that's done, Jenkins will run the PHPUnit test, but it won't do anything with it. So to do something with these test results, I'm going to add a post build action, and I'm going to choose publish JUnit test result report. And this basically asks me, hey, which results or which reports do you want to publish? And now I gave it this path, so I said to PHPUnit, publish your results in this file. So all I have to do is I have to copy and paste it in here. And then I can configure the health report amplification factor. Now I want all my tests for this project to succeed. Now you could say the build is still successful if just 90% or 95% of tests succeeded. But in this case, I really want all my tests to succeed. Well, hey, I've only got one test, so it would be pretty bad if even that test would fail. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to save my project, and I'm going to test our configuration. So for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to create a new commit and test if everything works correctly. I'm just going to manually trigger the build. So I'm going to click on build now. This schedules a build and should run our PHPUnit test. And as you can see, our build succeeded. I can click on it and I can see test results right here, and it says no failures. And if I click on it, I can see, well, in the root package there is a Gumball machine test. It took 3 milliseconds to complete. There was one passed test. I can even click on it. I can see the name of the test. I can see how long it took. Okay, so let's now see what happens if these tests fail. So let's go back to our Gumball machine and let's rig it. Let's make it faulty. I'm going to edit this file, and instead of giving the user 1 gumball for every turn, I'm going to say we're going to give him 2. I'm going to make a commit. I'm going to leave the commit message like this. I'm going to say commit. And I'm going to go back to Jenkins, and I'm going to trigger another build here. So I'm going to say back to project, build now, and wait for the build to finish. And boom, there you have it. Build number 2 has failed. If I click on it, I can see 1 failure. That's 1 more than the previous build. And if I click on test results, again, I can see which test has failed and what the differences are between this build and the previous build.